Hi, I'm Blaine Bartlett from Seattle, Washington, in the United States. You're tuning in to the Soul Rich Woman Show with Janisha Alura.
A strong and independent woman is something to behold. She pays her own bills, buys her own things, and she doesn't let a man affect her stability or self-confidence. She is a soul-rich woman. Are you ready to be rich doing what you love? Be on purpose and in control of your life again. At For Women Who Love the F Word podcast, we will be openly talking about getting more clients online, getting recognition as the leader and female entrepreneur, and also the F word, being fabulous, having freedom, and financial independence. It's time to own and love the F word. Welcome to the show. Hello and welcome to Soul Rich Woman TV for women who love the F word, being fabulous, having freedom, and financial independence. Today we have a really special guest with us who is moving possibility into reality. The best-selling author, keynote speaker, executive and leadership coach, consultant, a super amazing human. And let's welcome Blaine Bartlett. Blaine, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Absolute pleasure to be here with you. Thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do and what are the things that you're working on right now.
Wow, that's a wide open field of conversation. Well, a little bit about myself. I'm a businessman. I've been speaking and writing for years. I think I'll just start at the end and work backwards. But my last book, or actually one of my earlier books, was an international bestseller called "Compassionate Capitalism: A Journey to the Soul of Business," which Soul Rich Women actually kind of lines up with very nicely. But the idea with compassionate capitalism is that business has the power to transform the world if it's approached appropriately. And that is essentially what my work has been about. I've worked all over the world. I've lived all over the world. I speak all over the world. And it's about relationship. I mean, fundamentally, that's I think at the end of the day, what everything comes down to, my relationship, not only with you as an example, and my family, but also my relationship with my company's values, my company's goals and objectives, the work processes, my relationship with my chair. And with your audience, relationship with being fabulous, relationship with having freedom, relationship with financial independence. I mean, those have relationships involved with them. And when my relationships are working, my life is pretty good. So that's kind of what I pay attention to is how do we have great lives?
And the things that you're working on and talk about relationship and the soul of business, how did that even get you started in the first place? I mean, what was the thing that piqued your curiosity?
Oh, goodness. Well, I grew up on a farm, and one of the things that I noticed very early on was just the nature of seasons. Everything seemed to have a cycle to it, a beginning, an end. But in that cycle, even the end point was the beginning of a reemergence of something else. So nature has been, for me, one of the greatest teachers I've ever come across. And when I got into business, I started looking at how businesses actually conducted themselves. And they didn't seem to pay attention to seasonality. If it wasn't always winning, then something was wrong. And when people started thinking that way, their mindset, blame started coming into play. People started being fearful. I mean, there were just a lot of things that happened when allowances aren't made for the seasonality of how life actually works. So that's kind of piqued my interest a long time ago. I won't date myself by saying how long, but I started approaching businesses with the idea of coming at their market, coming at their process, coming at how they go to market with seasonality in mind. And part of the reason for that is it leads to innovation. Um, and every product has a life cycle. Every service has a life cycle. And rather than holding on tight to what was, how can I reinvent what we're doing and come up with new things, new ways of doing things? That's and this goes back to the soul. The soul is always looking to express itself, always looking to grow. And when it's not allowed to, toxicity starts to come in. I mean, things start to get off kilter. And that's where most organizations find themselves is, they're off kilter. They're not working in harmony with natural laws.
So to balance that partnership between soul and the logic of laws, where the day-to-day work, inner workings of a company, how do you then eventually find that balance, or is there ever a balance in that piece?
Yeah, balance is it's a concept that is nice in theory, but we're never actually ever in balance. Even when we're walking, we are out of balance. We're falling forward when we're walking. It feels like we're balanced because we're familiar with how that process works. But if you imagine a pendulum swinging, you would say, well, the midpoint is where balance is. Well, the pendulum swings through the midpoint. It never stops at the midpoint. When you achieve balance, you have stopped. I mean, that's one way to think about that. When the pendulum comes into balance, everything has come to rest. Everything has stopped. And another word for that is I've died. I have stopped breathing. I've come into balance, but it's not the kind of balance that I would aspire to. So part of the process is just recognizing, where is that center, so I can quickly come back to it when I feel overly off balance, because I can come back to that center point. And that's where resourcefulness is, and I can go in a number of directions from there. So my work is more about teaching people how to find their center so that they know where it's at when they're off balance, and they can come back to it, regroup, and move again.
So you talk about finding the balance, and how about yourself? How do you find balance? Being a person of influence like yourself, how do you find your own soul, and and also the partnership with your wife as well?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. It's been a journey. I'll just start with that. I mean, and it's been an inward journey. Just beginning to understand, and this started very early on for me. But what are the values that are absolutely fundamental to me? That's kind of my ground of being, so to speak. So beginning to know sensationally, how does that feel for me when I'm in integrity, as an example, because integrity is a very strong value for me. What does integrity feel like in my body, so that I begin to pay attention to when I'm moving out of integrity? There's a little red flag that gets set off. So part of the answer to the how there is, I'll take walks in nature. I'll go back to nature. I'll just kind of take walks to kind of settle. I have a meditation practice. I've meditated for probably 40 some odd years now. So I know how to come back to a place of equanimity, of a place of I'll use the word here, a place of balance, but it's more a place of centeredness, And then that, with my wife, we are very different people. She is incredibly creative, high energy, very social. I will tend to be more of a social or a situational extrovert. I mean, it's not my natural way of being, but given the work I do, I can be very social, but it drains me. So I mentioned that because we have different styles of living. We are different people. So by knowing where my center is, when she does something that kind of knocks me off balance, or when I do something that knocks her off balance, we have both found ways to get back to a centered place before we engage. Because if I try to engage when I'm off balance, it usually escalates, because I'm overcompensating. So I need to take a breath. Yeah, that's probably the simplest way of saying it.
And then this, I mean, I when you're interviewing me and then you mentioned about your wife or having this foundation, would you like to share with us a little bit more with our women audience?
Yeah, my wife started a foundation called the Unstoppable Foundation, and people can find it at unstoppablefoundation.org. Uh, but yeah, she founded it 11 years ago as a result of a trip she took to Africa. She was invited to speak, and she's a speaker, and she's written a number of books. She was invited to speak at this conference of women in Africa, and it was a group of women that traveled by foot, most of them, they walked to come to this conference. And the idea of that conference was for the invited guests to hear what the women were actually having to deal with on a daily basis. A lot of it was organized and oriented around lack of access to health care, lack of access to nutritious food, and more importantly, lack of access to education. So she spent about a week there in that conference. It was a week-long conference. When she came back home, she was, continuously, kind of wrestling with the question, what can I do about that? I'm only one person. What can I do? But then she decided that, when she had a birthday coming up, it was a major milestone birthday. One with a zero after it. And yeah, so rather than asking for gifts, she decided to hold a birthday party and invited people. First of all, people had to pay to come to her party. And then she asked them for money at the party for this school that she wanted to build. So she started out with an idea of building a school. Well, she ended up raising about $85,000 US at that party. I mean, it was a very successful party. Ended up building some schools. And she said, well, if I could do that just part-time at a party, what would I do if I did this full-time? And that was 11 years ago. And now the foundation annually does about $5 million in gifts to these communities that we work with, and not just schools any longer, but it now is access to clean water, nutritional food, economic education for the parents, and healthcare. And we're underwriting scholarships. We helped fund the first college in this part of the world, and it is transforming an entire region of sub-Saharan Africa right now. There's about roughly 90,000 people a day that are impacted directly by the work that the foundation is doing.
Wow, this is
It's
such
unstoppable.
amazing work. Yeah, really unstoppable. Wow. So both you and your wife are really people of influence. And how, there's a lot of myths about people of influences, like, they assume that people go up easily and, they will achieve their successes easily. But how really all these things work for you? Or what are some of the myths that you have come across or heard of, or personally your viewpoint on being a person of influence?
Well, I think and just in terms of myths, you spoke to some of them, that people look at influencers and they go, well, yeah, I could never do that. I mean, they look what they're doing and look how they are. Well, the backstory is that in order to get there, I had to go through a lot of things. And those things were disappointing. Some of them were wonderful, but a lot of them really challenged me. And I think anybody that is highly successful has had challenges. And I know you and I had talked about this at one point in time in your journey. But some of these challenges can be incredibly dark. And through perseverance, through holding on to the dream of what I want to have in my life, the ideal, that's what keeps me moving. And that's, when you think of influencers, people influence through energy. We don't influence through our words. We don't influence through things, through videos and whatnot. We influence through story. And the story of our lives, the story, and it's not just the narrative, but it's the energy of the story that, that kind of makes me who I am. Yeah, I am a story walking on the planet today. And my story is worth telling. And so part of it is about how it gets put together. And some people will go, wow, that's very cool. Some people will go, next. And that's fine. Yeah. The idea of being an influencer an effective one, is to let go of the need for fame, let go of the need for attention, and just be there. What can I give away? And literally a center of distribution, highly effective influencers, and I certainly think that you are one of these. You're in the process of continuously just giving away. Giving what else can I contribute here? It's a contribution. You are a center of influence, but you're also a center of distribution, and I think those two absolutely go hand in hand.
Wow, I love that. And you are the best-selling author. You're also a keynote speaker, executive and leadership coach consultant, and now the world's greatest motivators. One of the show that's already there, and you are one of the person sharing your expertise. So why don't you tell us, now that you have waved the magic wand of influence, and now you're on this platform, tell us more about that feeling or the achievement that you have, attained.
Well, yeah, it's, how do I put that in words? It feels like I've come home, I guess would be one way to, what I don't feel like is that I'm striving for something. I feel like I have a message to speak. I have something to share. And whatever platform I find myself using, whether it's an interview like this or whether it's on a national television stage or a book or whatever, I'm not worried about how it will be received. I'm more worried about how I'm going to deliver it. Yeah, is it honest? Is it integrous? That's what I look for in myself. Yeah, if it feels right for me, and I don't mean this from an ego perspective. This really is my check for integrity. If I don't feel like I'm fluffing things up, if I don't feel like I'm making things up, I'm just speaking from my heart, from the soul. Again, the soul of who I am. That will resonate with the people that it needs to resonate with, and that's a big deal as a leader. That's a huge deal because it's authenticity, and I think that would be probably the word I'd use. I feel, there was a time when I was just learning how to do a lot of this. I was kind of copying some other people, which is how we all learn. This is how kids learn. But there was a point where my voice became more important than their voice. And I mean that from the sense of authenticity. What was authentic to me and what was authentic for me, and how could I communicate that authenticity? Because people connect with that. And the challenge is you have to be vulnerable in order to be authentic. And for a lot of people, that's scary, because vulnerability means I have to be open to judgment. Some people might judge me.
Yeah, I really love that, because authenticity is something we all strive for, but sometimes we get lost in the sea of sameness. Like what you said, we tend to model after success, or we try to be like that person, but not really being truly vulnerable to who we essentially are. So what are some of the steps that my audience would be able to take to really have the soul of understanding the soul of who I am, or being a person who understands the steps to become authentic?
Yeah. And you ask very good questions here. One of the things that, there's actually a two-part, I guess, if there's a formula to work with. The first is, be clear about what I want. In my experience, most people are far more clear about what they don't want than what they do want. And that want I have to feel that want in my body. I mean, I really, it has to have an emotion attached to it. Of, I want this. And that's the second piece, that comes into play here is that desire. When those two pieces are in place, the want and the desire, that's a recipe for being unstoppable because it will keep me moving. And it's unique to every person. It starts though with the dream. What is it that I want to have? And do I feel it? Do I feel it? And this is the one that really makes the difference for me. When I'm talking about feeling it, it lives inside me. It's not outside of me. I want it, but it's in here. So I begin to behave today, and this is really important for people to understand. I behave today, I think today, I feel today, I talk today, I act today as if it's already here. As if it's already here. What that does is it changes my vibrational level. It changes how I see the world. When I begin to act as if my dream is already realized, even in the face of all the external evidence that says it's not, then I start moving myself up to the level where it starts to show up. It does live inside me. Everything's invented two times. First time is an idea, and then the second time when it actually manifests. It starts with the idea, and the manifestation of that idea happens when I start living from that idea. I live from it. It lives in me. I am, I have this. It is, I am this. That's sort of an idea.
Wow.
So, if there's a secret to this, that's what that secret is for me. Behave today as if the future were already here. It's already arrived. It's already here. I just haven't gotten there yet.
Wow, that's really cool. I love that. And you are your host of your own podcast, The Soul of Business, and of course your book. And if that's it, what is your other favorite book that you are reading right now, or you recommend to our audience?
It's I've got about 4 books that I'm working with right now. The one that it's actually on my bedstand next to my bed. It's called Silence. And it's a book about becoming silent so I can hear my soul. And it's a really interesting book for me anyway. There's some studies that show that the average person has about roughly 75,000 thoughts a day. And just think about that: 75,000 thoughts a day going through my mind. Every day. Squirrel. What did I forget to turn the stove off? Just these little things that flip through. With all that noise, the voice of my soul can't be heard. So the idea in the book Silence is, how do I begin to quiet the chatter? How do I begin to quiet all of that noise so that I can begin to hear what my soul wants to say? And when I can hear that soul, that voice, that's where I start to move again, because it wants to grow. It wants to grow. So the book is called Silence by Ryan Geist, I think is what the fellow's name is. I can get the title or the author's name for you a little later if you want.
That would be great. And I will be able to place it in the show notes. And of course, I can see that you really support your wife, because whenever you mention her, I can see that glow on your face and that very, very proud tone in your voice. So for that, to you, who is a soul-rich woman? To you, who is a soul-rich woman?
Who is a soul-rich woman? Oh my gosh. One of my best bosses, and this goes back a lot of years, was a woman. And I had men bosses just about all my life. And then all of a sudden I've got this woman boss, and she was Oh goodness gracious, a little bit over about 1.2 meters tall. She was very tiny, but she was just this powerhouse. And I remember absolutely being fascinated by how she led, and she led from her soul. She would pause every now and then, and the first time I saw her do this, I was going, "What is she doing?" And she would just pause because somebody would ask a question or something would happen. But instead of reacting, she would pause and go, And she's one of my best friends. I've got to know her very well over the years. But what she did was she would just pause for a moment. And I talked about going back to center. She would find a way to get back to that voice before she reacted, before she responded, and then that was the source of her movement. She would tap into her soul before she engaged. And more often than not, it was absolutely the perfect way to move things forward. Sometimes it didn't work, but more often than not, it did. And that was a lesson that really stuck with me. Yeah.
Wow. So she's a woman who really stands and tap into her inner strength before she responded to situations and not react to things around her, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Viktor Frankl, who wrote the book A Man's Search for Meaning, says that for every one of us, there is a space between a stimulus or an event and the reaction that we will typically engage with. And the reaction is a reflexive reaction. In that space is where you can find the soul. In that space, if you can just train yourself, practice taking a breath. And this is what my friend would do. She would, I would literally see her just, and it was no more than just a single breath, but it was enough to slow things down so she could enter into that gap and then listen. And then she would have an answer.
I love that. Wow. Amazing. Very good. So, in Soul Rich Woman, we have 4 F words, okay, being fabulous, freedom, financial independence, and family. To you, which F word is the most significant one?
Family. For me, family.
And why is that?
I go back to relationships again. I think every one of us defines who we are by the quality of the relationships we have around us. And and your listeners might appreciate this, but every single person on this planet, and there's about 8 billion, approximately 8 billion people on this planet, we think that we all live on the same planet, and we do, but we all live in different worlds. Your world is different than mine. My world is different than my wife's. There are 8 billion people on this planet living in and coming from different worlds. So everybody I encounter is basically an alien. They are coming from a different world. So family for me is a way to get to know different worlds. It's a way to get to know a different viewpoint on what this thing we call life is about. And by practicing with my family, because families are tough. Families can be very challenging. Getting to the point where I can actually listen to my family and value and validate their view of the world and not try to impose my view of the world on them. The only thing that happens is we both expand. I get to appreciate more. So for me, the way to greater freedom, the way to have greater financial freedom, the way for being fabulous, it all starts with family. In the quality of my relationship there. And it doesn't mean I have to like them all the time. That's not the case. But I use them as part of my training ground. They are my training partners for how to live a good life.
especially to have harmony and peace, and truly that is the food for the soul. And I
Absolutely.
totally agree with that. I totally love that. And so, how can our audience connect with you and reach you?
Ah, yeah, the easiest is by my website, blainebartlett.com. Yeah, just blainebartlett.com. And that will provide links to my company. It provides links to my books and my videos, television shows I've done. Yeah, it's all available on that website, blainebartlett.com. And if they want to listen to my podcast, they can always subscribe, The Soul of Business with Blaine Bartlett. And it's available on all of the regular podcast outlets.
And so, all the things that you have done, I just want to thank you for this beautiful soul and this person of influence that's you, Blaine. Thank you very much for being present in this earth, on this planet Earth, and helping so many people doing the great work that you're doing today.
Oh, it's my
And
absolute pleasure. Thank you.
And well, for you who is listening to this show, I just want to say that all the links will be placed in the show notes. And thank you for joining us today. We hope that we have done everything in our power to make it well worth your time. My name is Janisha Alora, signing off. Bye for now. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so honored that we are connected, and I hope that I can continue to serve you as you build your dreams. And if you love this episode, and I hope that you did, rate it 5 stars. Give us that glowing review because it will help more women around the world finding the Soul Rich Woman podcast. Alone you are strong, together we are unstoppable. Now share this with every woman who needs it, because this is how we are changing the world, one woman at a time. As always, get out of your comfort zone and go towards the dreams you've always wanted to achieve. For women who love the F word, being fabulous, having freedom, and financial independence. My dear soul-rich woman, sending you my love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.